Well, hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Adobe XD workshop for beginners. Thank you for joining us both online and in person. We have a great workshop for you today. Adobe XD is a piece of software that is for prototyping, and we're going to get started with it today. I am Professor Carrasquilla, and I'm joined today by Professor Breaux. And also got the help is Professor Barnett. So you are in good hands today. Next slide, Cassidy.
There we go.
There we go. We're going to start with some welcome and introductions. We'll talk about who uses XD and how they use it. And then we'll move on to how to use XD. We have a demo for you in which we're going to give you some assets and actually walk you through making something for the first time. And if you're joining us as extra credit for my class, one of them, then that is what you'll turn in to me as for your extra credit to get that extra credit. Kristen online, thanks for sharing that you're getting a lot of repeat of hearing, possibly from another computer in the room. Thank you so much, Kristen. All right. If you're joining us in the room, make sure your audio is off. It probably launched on initially because that's what it does. So you just double check that. There's someone at the door, Jessica, if you want to creeping in. Yeah, it's echoing. Sam, thank you so much. We're looking into that, and we'll look into individual computers. So thanks for bringing that up to our attention. It could also be the audio in the room. I wonder if I turn mine off, that will help. All right, I don't know if that helped at all. Is that helpful? More helpful for the echoing? If you can give me the heads up online. I thank you so much for your flexibility and your feedback. Oh, Bradley, it probably wasn't you. It was the machine. Still, oh, no more echoing. Okay, perfect. So it was me, and I'm sorry, but also thank you for letting me know. All right. Kelly says, can you repeat what we should turn in for extra credit? The demo that you do today will be the thing that you turn in. Wherever it's at, it doesn't have to be finished. That's if you're joining for extra credit from one of my classes. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you so much for helping us fix that. Once we go through that demo, we'll give you some tools and resources to keep exploring, learning more about XD, doing some challenges and tutorials, and then we'll let you go. And next slide. Hey, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. Here's how this came about. In the hallway on Slack, someone said, hey, do we learn XD during the program? And I chimed in and said, yeah, no, but it's really essential. We're working out where to put it within our program, within the curriculum. And I was like, do you want to do a workshop? And they said, yes. And I said, cool. And Cassidy jumped right in, and then Professor Breaux and Professor Barnett jumped right in to help out. So that was excellent. Thank you so much. I think that was Kristen, yeah. Thank you so much for thinking of that. If there's interest after this, we can do an intermediate level or an advanced level as well. So thanks for your input there. I'd like to welcome our newest faculty member for GIT, Cassidy Breaux. She's a lecturer. Welcome, Cassidy. And I'm, of course, Professor Carrasquilla, and I'm mostly going to take a back seat today and help you out online. So let's go ahead and get started. Cassidy, did you want me to do these parts, or do you want to do them as well? You want me to do everything but the demo? Okay, perfect. All right, so who uses XD and what do they even use it for? So thumbs up in the room if you can hear me okay, because I have headphones in, so I don't know if I'm literally yelling at you or if I'm talking really quiet. So good, okay. Experienced designers use XD, UX designer, interaction designers, from all different disciplines, not just design disciplines, but UX disciplines, customer experience, for both physical things and digital things. So although in GIT and the UX programs, we tend to use it for digital items, this can very much be used for physical items as well. In fact, I thought about it just before I got here. We could have done the whole presentation in XD. That also would have worked. So kind of thinking for other uses for it. And the kind of ways they use XD is for wireframes, for prototypes, for things that are going on a website, whether that's mobile or desktop, and apps and games, and probably not even limited to those things at this point. It's a necessity for the kind of interactive design that we do here. It's also a leading tool within the industry. Just a quick search on LinkedIn, you can find that companies like T-Mobile and Amazon, Microsoft, Zillow, Adobe, obviously, Petco, Dropbox, Apple, Honeywell, and Zillow are using XD for their prototyping tool. Here's a quote from a designer advocate and Adobe XD. Is that Adobe XD helps you to craft prototypes that look and feel like the real thing so that you can communicate your design vision and maintain alignment across your team efficiently. So I keep trying to advance the slides, but I'm not in control. So how have our students used the app before? This is an example from a GIT graduate, just finished the 4+1 program. Ari Faye made this app called Which Professor Are You? And Cassidy, if you click on go to example, and we will actually give you this presentation after the event, so you can click and interact with these. This is Ari's entry into the GIT Awards for a couple of semesters ago. And she's built out an app that decides which professor are you. Cassidy, if you scroll down, you can actually go to the XD prototype itself. Awesome, thank you so much. All right, so we begin. Which professor are you? Question 1, what's your favorite aspect of design? Web, obviously. And it gives some feedback here. Web design, 50% of people also chose that. So we'll go to the next. What would you rather have? Quizzes following the reading or a lecture? I mean, yeah, lecture. 30% people chose the same answer as you. What GIT club might you join? AIGA Poly, probably. 5% also chose this. So giving a little feedback. Note that the app itself isn't calculating. This is really just a demonstration. So we're kind of faking it till we make it. It can't actually calculate your answers. And the most important question at all, do you love tacos? 60% said yes. And then if you hit next, you come up with the answer results. You're Professor Carrasquilla. Fun fact, it's the only answer. And it must mean that you love tacos, you hate doing laundry, and we'll give Ari an A+ on this assignment. And I did. If you click on share, you can see where you can share out your answers in tweet or on Facebook. I think it actually is built out to even go there. Nope. So this is an example of how GIT students have used this app before to kind of do all of the visual interactions and prototype before you've done the coding, right? And so you may be in the boat that you really love to design, but not so much code, or you love to code and not so much design, or you like both, and that's okay. Any of those options is perfect, right? It's exactly do what you know how to do and you like to do. So any of these are good. Excellent. Let's take a look at one more example. This is an example from Kathy McDermott, and she also just graduated from GIT. Here's her example. You can go ahead and push the play button. One of the things that XD also does is let you record an interactive demo right from the software, which is really helpful. So in this example, she's actually running through all of the interactions for this app that she made. Note that all of these animations are all built into XD, so you can give a really dynamic look for those micro and macro interactions that make an app or a website really engaging. Excellent. And again, we'll give you this link after the program. We'll email it to you. And then I put together an example of some great projects with XD on Behance. And so whether or not we look at those now, I think we could probably let you explore them later. I have the first one is an actual curated collection from Behance that all is on XD. And then I've picked out some particularly good projects that showcase how to use Adobe XD and are great examples of how to set up your portfolio in Behance to show the project that you work on. So we'll let you explore those later, perhaps. All right, and now we're going to move on to our live demo with Professor Breaux. I'm trying so hard.
All right. Do you want to mute on your side? Perfect. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to do a live demo. We're going to dive right into Adobe XD together, and we are going to create this little coffee shop app together. So we're going to create a little homepage splash screen and an orders page. We're going to learn how to have a horizontal scroll, a vertical scroll, and other fixed elements on the page. We're going to learn how to prototype them together so you can click between them. So what I've done is I have some assets for us, just some coffee images that I found. So let me share out this in the Zoom chat. Let's make sure everyone can access it. So let me share, make sure is anyone, should I do ASU? We'll change it after just to make sure. Okay, so I've posted the link to those images in the chat on Zoom. And please let me know if you can access them okay. Perfect. So once you have them, go ahead and download them to your computer. We're going to need to access them once we start applying the images to our project in XD. So I'm going to give you a minute to do that. While you're doing that, I'm just going to talk a little bit. So I'm going to move my screen over here. Can you see my Adobe XD dialog box? Perfect. So this box here, I've just accessed. I have this little, cloud icon for Adobe Cloud up here in my toolbar. I've clicked that, and essentially I can see all of my Adobe apps, and XD is one of them. So hopefully you're able to access XD okay. If not, you can let us know in the chat, or if you're in here, you can raise your hand. And I'm just going to go ahead and open up XD. Now, once I click open, I am presented with this little welcome, modal here, essentially. And there's a lot going on here. So up at the top under design, prototype, and share, I see I can start from any of these sizes. So I can start from a mobile phone or a tablet size, a web size, an Instagram story size, or I can customize it all together. On the bottom, I can see my recent projects. You can see I've played with this a couple times. And over on the left-hand side, there's a learn link, your files, anything shared with you, and so on. So what I want to do is, you see this little arrow next to iPhone XS 11 Pro. Go ahead and click that arrow. So make sure you're clicking on that arrow, or if you click over here, it's like a different thing. But if you click on that arrow, it shows you this little drop down. So you essentially can choose which phone size you want to start with. So you can get really particular with XD in terms of which device you're specifically styling for, which is really cool. I'm going to go ahead and choose this 375 iPhone X size, just because that's the size I have myself. So let's start with this one. I'm going to click it. And once I do, Adobe XD launches. Woo. So now we have a full view here. And let's talk about what we're seeing here just at a high level. So I chose my size, my 375 pixel wide screen. If I click this, this is essentially my artboard. So anything that I design and want to show has to be on this artboard. Outside of this, this gray color, this is our canvas. Now you can use this space to kind of put together some things, but it won't show on your, on your prototypes or if you share it unless it's on this artboard. Now I can click this and edit the size over here on the right-hand side. So I can change it if I want to. Now I'm just going to quickly kind of go around in a clockwise order and just show you what we have going on. So on the far left-hand side, this blue icon is the select tool. We're going to have to come back here and click this at times, especially if we're drawing boxes and things. So keep note of where that is and what that does. So it just makes my, my pointer come back. Under that, we have a series of shapes we can create, lines, pen tool, text box. Under here, we have our artboards. So again, this is called our artboard. So if I click this, essentially I can create another one on my canvas. So I could click to add another artboard to my canvas if I wanted to. There's a shortcut to this. So if I click back on my pointer here, my select tool, and I clicked A on my keyboard, it will still open up my artboard tool. So that's a really cool little shortcut that we can keep note of. Now on the top, so XD has 3 parts to it. First is the design part. That's the part we're in, right? So this is where I want to design my, apps, my presentations, my whatever. This prototype tool, I can click over here and now I can start linking things together. So we are going to create 2 screens and we're going to link those 2 together. So once we get to that point, we're going to use the prototype tool. And then we're going to share. So this share part, if you notice, it changes the way that it looks. So once my design is done, or I want to get feedback on it, or I want to send it in for extra credit, this is where you're going to go to find your share links and be able to share it with other people. So I'm going to click back on design. I muted myself. At the top here is my the name of my file. And right now it shows untitled. That's the default here. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and rename it. And let's go ahead and name it. Let's just name Coffee Shop App. I'm going to save. Now this saves on the cloud. So if you access or sign into Creative Cloud from anywhere, you can still mess with this app, pull it up on any computer, which is a nice benefit to Adobe. All right, so we've renamed it. Over on the right-hand side, this is kind of where our styles are going to happen, how we're going to move things around, change its color, change its font, all of that. So we will get there in just 1 second. So we're at our artboard. Before we get started, I'm just going to rename my artboard. So this is going to be our home page. So what you can do is double click on where it says iPhone X, XS11, and it will have you select all of this and you can just rename it. I'm just going to say home. Now notice when I did that, over on the left-hand side, this is showing my artboard. So this is essentially equivalent to a layers panel in Photoshop or Illustrator. We're going to be able to see all of our assets, all of our rectangles, our colors, all those things that we've added in here over on this panel on the left-hand side. Okay, so let's get set up. Hopefully you're getting familiar with how to move around. Once we start messing with or adding to our artboard, we can zoom in and out. So on my computer, I have a Mac. I can Command plus and Command minus. If you're on a PC, you can Control plus, Control minus, and that will zoom you in and out. So keep note of that. So let's go ahead and create a little color palette real quick so that we can just eyedrop our colors pretty simply. So on the top here in my canvas area, I'm going to click this rectangle tool on the left, and I'm just going to create a box. It doesn't matter the size. Now notice that I'm done creating my box, but if I try to move it, my rectangle tool is still selected. So what you have to do now is go back and click that select tool on the left in order to move around or edit your box in any way. Okay, so our first color of our palette is going to be white. So that's perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy that box and paste it right next to it. I'm going to move it, and let's go ahead and change it's this color here. So over on the right hand side, notice it has fill and border. So I'm just going to click into this fill, and I'm going to give you a hexadecimal value that we're going to add in there. So it's going to be EADCCC. EADCCC is going to be our first color. And it's this light tan color. It's going to be the background color of our app. Now I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste. Again, we're going to do this a couple more times. So our next color, I click in here, is going to be C4A D8F. It's going to be this darker brown color. Did everyone get that okay? C4A D8F. And I don't have chat open, so if there's, we're good. Okay, perfect, thank you. I'm seeing that come through. Hope I'm not missing anything. Okay, so we're gonna move again. And what's cool is that instead of copy and paste, there's this trick that you can use in pretty much any tool. If you click and then you hold Option and drag, you can copy that thing. So Option and drag, that's a little trick. Okay, our next color is going to be B77C30. B77C30. Okay, I'm going to copy again. And our last color is going to be 212325. 212325. All right. This is what we're going to be using for our button colors. Okay, so we have our color palette. We're going to be able to eyedrop these colors really simply and quickly. So let's get started. So on our homepage, I'm just going to click my homepage. I'm just going to click the artboard. And I want the background color to not be white. I actually want the background color to be this color. So I'm just going to click this eyedropper tool next to fill, and I'm going to eyedrop that color. All right, and we're already at a good place here. Our splash screen's coming together. So let's add some text here. So we're gonna put an image up here like this floating coffee cup, but we're gonna do that in just 1 second. So let's add our text first. So I'm gonna go over here to the left-hand side, click this T. You could also hit T on your keyboard. And I'm gonna click and drag and create a little box for my text. In that box, I'm gonna type coffee shop. I'm just gonna type it like that because that's gonna be our logo for this coffee shop company. Now notice my my little, what is this called? My type tool is still open essentially. So I need to come back here, click on my select tool. And now we can start messing with our font families and our positioning and all of that. So over on the right-hand side, I'm gonna click Align Center. And I'm gonna go up here to the top here, you see my cursor, and I'm gonna align it to the center of my artboard, which is this one right here. And my positioning of it is going to be about like 3/4 of the way down on the page. And the font I'm going to choose is Big Caslon. So hopefully you have that on your computer, Big Caslon, and I'm going to make it 50 pixels. Okay, so we're going to start eyedropping now. So make sure you can see your color palette in the same view as your text. I'm going to click and highlight coffee. Go over to the right next to fill, click the eyedropper tool. And I'm going to eyedrop this darker color. Not quite black, almost there. And then I'm going to click and highlight shop. Click my eyedropper tool again. And I'm going to click this like orangey tan color.
Recording in progress.
Sorry about that. Oh. All right, sorry about that. Oops. Oh no, I just undid everything. Oh no, it's gone. Technical difficulties. Let's try to redo. There we go. Okay, so this is what it should look like. Let's make sure it's centered again. We're good. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some text underneath it, just a little description of the coffee shop. So I'm just going to click my text again over on the left, click and drag to create a text box. Now it's saved the last font that I had, which is the Big Caslon 50. So instead, what I'm going to do, I can just I'll just type a letter in there just so I don't lose my text box. But I'm going to come over to the right-hand side. I'm going to go to Verdana and I'm going to make it 14 pixels. So I think you have to have highlight. Sorry about that. So I just highlighted and clicked 14 pixels. So typically 16 pixels is like the standard size for webs, like our default browser size for paragraphs and things like that. So I'm going to go a little smaller with it just for the stylistic reasons. So what I'm going to type in here is, we can copy this. So I'm just going to say located in Mesa. Coffee shop serves freshly brewed coffees, espresso, beverages, and teas. We were voted the best coffee in Phoenix, Arizona. And I can actually paste that into the chat if you would like. So you can copy and paste that into your document. So I want to change the color first and foremost of this text to make sure you can see your color palette in your view here. I'm going to click and highlight, oops. Click and highlight my text, go back to my fill, click that eyedropper tool again, and we're going to do that darker color. Now what I want to do is I want to align it actually to the left and not center. Typically when you have paragraphs like this, you don't want align center. It's not as legible as a left aligned. Now you can play with the width on your own and just see what looks good. And then you could notice how these little grids kind of show up, or these toolbars show up telling you that it's centered on the screen. Or you can come up here to the top left and click that center tool. Another trick too, if I zoom in and I want to see how far away one element is from another element, I can actually click on something, hold down my Option key and hover over something else. Do you see that little 14 showing up in between? So that's actually telling me how many pixels away that this element is from that element, which comes in handy. So when it comes to like app or website design or website or app design, there's two common, I guess, grids that people might use. One's a 10 pixel grid and one's an 8 pixel grid. Like when I worked at GoDaddy, we used an 8 pixel grid for our brand. But by default, Adobe will use a 10 pixel grid. I know that because notice it's 14 pixels away. If I keep this clicked, I hold down Shift and I press my down arrow. It's moved it, so Shift down arrow. And I check the spacing again, it's now moved 10 pixels. So anytime I hold down Shift and move it, it's going to nudge it 10 pixels. So Adobe XD is automatically on that 10 pixel grid. So we can use that to our advantage here. We can keep everything consistently 10 pixels or 10 pixel increments away from other things. So maybe in this one, I can do 20. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna make sure it's centered again. Okay, next we need something to click on. So we're gonna create a button. Now a button is simply just a box. I'm gonna come over here, click the rectangle tool again, or you can click R on your keyboard. I'm gonna go down here below the text and I'm just gonna click and drag. Now I'm gonna click my select tool again. Let's change the size of this. So over on the right-hand side where it has the width and the height, I'm gonna change my width to 230 pixels and my height to 50 pixels. And then I'm gonna come up here and make sure it's centered horizontally. Okay, so let's make this look a little bit more like a button. So I'm gonna make sure my color palette here is in view. I'm gonna change my fill to this darker color. I'm gonna take the border completely off. I don't want my border, so I'm gonna uncheck my border. I also want my edges to be a little bit curved. I don't want it to be super straight and pointy like this. So what you can do is right above the fill, you see where it has this 0? You can change that to 8. So in code, this would be equivalent to a border radius. So now I've changed it to that nice curved edge. And it just needs some text. So I'm gonna click my T on my keyboard. I'm gonna click and drag. And it's gonna show up black. So you might wanna do it outside of it and drag it in. But I'm gonna say order now. I'm gonna highlight, I'm gonna change the color to white. I can't see my color palette, so I'm just gonna open this and drag my little thing all the way up to the left corner. And now I can see it, which is cool. But I want to change the size a little bit. I want it to be a little larger than the paragraph copy. So I'm going to change this 14 pixels to 20. And I'm going to center it. Now, similar to how, I'm going to click my select tool again. So similar to how you can center something on your artboard, you can actually center elements within other elements. So with order now selected, I can also click on my button. So I have both my order now and my button selected. I've held down Shift to do that. So I have order now, I hold down Shift and I click that background. So both of these are selected. Now I can come up here and I can center it both vertically and horizontally. Did everyone see that? Vertically and horizontally. Cool. And now I'm just gonna move, oh, not the whole thing. I'm gonna highlight this again. Maybe we can group it together. So I can right click and click group. You can also do Control G or Command G. Now notice on the left-hand side, remember that layers panel I talked to you about? So you can see that there, group 1. So I'm just gonna rename that to buttons or button. And I'm just gonna see if we can make this an increment of 10 away from this paragraph. So You can just move it to about 30 pixels. Yeah. Or you can just kind of move it where you think it looks good. And I'm gonna zoom out. Maybe I want to take this whole thing and kind of move it up a little bit in order to, so like if I moved it and kind of, you know, it moves freely. Something you could do is like hold down shift and move the whole thing, and it keeps it like in that row. So it's not gonna move from centered, which is nice. Just gonna move it up a little bit. Okay, now we're gonna place our image. There's a couple ways we can do this. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find it in my Finder window. Let's see. Hold on, the zoom controls are all over the place here. Maybe I'll ignore my mess here. Okay, I'm gonna find it in my Finder window here. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click this flying cup.png. I'm just gonna like drag it into my artboard. Now notice some of the coffee image is in my artboard and it's like a full 100% opacity, and some of it's outside my artboard. So Adobe XD is telling me this isn't going to show. This is outside, right? So the opacity is turned down a little bit. So I'm just going to take this and position this up here somewhere. Maybe you can play around with the positioning, you know, like that looks good there. Maybe I want this to move up a little bit, down a little bit. We can keep it with that increment of 10 if we wanted to. Cool. All right, so it looks like our splash screen is almost done. This text looks a little bit tight. I want to change the line height a little bit actually. So I'm just gonna click on that. And I think I had it like 24. So over here on the right-hand side, it's 17 by default for me. I can click 24 and it changes the line height. So it's a little bit more legible. Now I can move my button down. We're getting a little nitpicky here, but you have a bunch of options in terms of how you style it, similar to what you should be used to in terms of like applying a font, changing the size, aligning it, all that. Cool. All right, our home page is done. Good job. We'll create our next page. Now, in order to create our next page, there's a couple things that we could do. You could either click the A on your keyboard or click this artboard little icon. You can find that 375 and click it, or you can just click this home artboard, hold down your option key and drag it over or copy paste. So you can have a bunch of artboards here. So this next page, I'm just going to delete everything that's on here. So just click and drag and delete. I'm going to keep the same background color because that's going to be consistent throughout. Okay, so on this page, we're going to do some fun stuff. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take this coffee shop and I'm going to copy it. And over here, I'm going to paste. And I want to change the size from 50 to 30. And then I'm going to move it up to the top, maybe like about 30 pixels from the top. Maybe less, like 20. And then I want to make sure it's centered. So I'm going to click that align to artboard centered thing that we've been practicing with. Okay. Now, this is going to be our orders page. So I'm going to create some more text. Click and drag. I'm going to type order here. But I'm going to highlight and change it to Verdana. Let's do 24 and bold. because it's going to be your big like main heading on our page. I also aligned it to the left. Oh yeah.
When you want to resize your text box, so let's say you make that border really big, the text box, and you want to make it sized to fit the content.
Yeah.
You double click on that bottom handle.
Yeah. So imagine it's like this, right? And is this what you mean? So then the order is in here, but a lot smaller than the box. So what you could do, I could double click kind of maybe in that, it's the bottom one. Okay. So I could double click here. It resizes it. Does that one work? No, just the bottom. So it can shrink it to fit the content there. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna move this up a little bit, maybe 30 pixels or so away from it. I'm gonna zoom in. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna create a little search field. So I'm gonna click my rectangle here. I'm just gonna click and drag under my order. We have to click back on our select tool so we don't keep drawing squares. And I'm gonna make sure I change my size. Let's do 325 pixels wide. I don't know about height because I did not write that one down. Let me see. Yeah, like maybe 45 works. Cool. I want to keep it white, but I want to remove my border. So I'm just going to uncheck the border here. I want to change the border radius, similar to how we did the button. I want to change it to, so remember where that was, where the 0 is, where my cursor is. I'm going to change it to 20. So now it's rounded and kind of fun, stylized. Let's make sure it's centered. And I'm just going to type search in it. So I'm going to create a text box. I'm just kind of repeating a lot of the stuff we've done so far. I'm going to make that, let's do 14 pixels to match our paragraph. I'm going to make sure it's regular. And then maybe we can change the color. Oops. We can change the color over here to this darker color. I'm just going to vertically center it. Okay, we're going to create a shape here. So I could find like a little magnifying glass icon somewhere, or I can create that shape here in XD. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this circle. And in my little canvas here, I'm just going to click and drag, but I want to keep the dimensions. So I'm going to hold shift while I do it. It creates a perfect circle for me. Go back and click my select tool. Now I'm going to change the width and height. Let's do 18 pixels by 18 pixels. And make my border a little bit bigger, maybe two pixels. I just have a gray color. So you can open up this little box and find a gray somewhere that you like. And I'm going to move my search over. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to click on this line tool under my triangle. And kind of at an angle, I'm just going to draw a little magnifying glass handle and make that 2 pixels as well. So we've created a little magnifying glass. I'm going to just highlight that, group it. And then let's see what we need to change over here on our layers panel. So I'm just going to say, search icon. That works. And I'm going to drag it onto my artboard somewhere in this search box. I'm going to position my search next to it. And since this is a placeholder, like if we're talking about code, this is a placeholder for our input, right? Usually that's a little bit lighter. It's not so dark. So I can come over here and I can change the opacity. Make it a little lighter. Now we have a search bar, which is fun. Okay. One more little title. Actually, let's go ahead and get to our cards. So this is the fun part with XD. XD gets a little complex in terms of how some things kind of group together. You can create things. We're going to create a card essentially with a couple stuff in it. And then we're going to, you can actually just click one button in XD and it'll show up the same, but horizontal. So vertical and horizontal. It's called stack. So I'm going to, just in my canvas, let's play with it over here. I'm not gonna drag it on there yet until we're ready. I'm gonna click my rectangle and let's just create one here. I'll tell you the dimensions in a second. Click my select tool. Over on the right-hand side, let's make it a width of 200 pixels and a height of 300 pixels. Let's change the border radius. Let's make that like 8 pixels border radius over here. How's that? Yeah, that looks good. Consistent with our buttons because this will be a clickable element. I want the background color to be this darker color up here. So let's eyedrop again, that darker color. And I'm going to remove my border. I don't want that. Okay. So let's create some text here. Actually, let's drag our image. We're going to drag an image and put it here. Let's open up our little, I'm going to open up my Finder window again. I'm going to.
Can you share that link to the drive again?
Absolutely. Oh, that's not the right. Here it is. Get link. Copy link. Yeah. Okay. So in my, out of my images, let's go ahead and click the cappuccino one. How about that? Cappuccino, I'm just going to click and drag it into my canvas here. And I'm going to change the size. Actually, the size is perfect. I've already created it for you. So I'm just going to drag it into my card. All right. So underneath that, I'm going to create some text here. So I'm going to click the text again. Out in the canvas, I'm going to click and drag. And let's type espresso cappuccino. Did I spell that right? That looks right. So instead of this Verdana, I want it to be our fancy font. So let's change it to Big Caslon. I'm going to make it 20 pixels. Now I've let it kind of drop onto 2 lines. So I'm just going to keep it like that. And I'm going to change its fill to white. So I'm just going to click and drag up here. And now I'm going to drag it onto my card. So I've resized my text box to kind of make it drop onto 2 lines like this, because that's what I want here. Let's see, maybe around 20 pixels from the edge. You can position it where you think looks best. All right, now I'm going to do some more text underneath. I'm going to click my text box again, click and drag, and then I'm going to say, I don't know, dark roast. But this time I want it to be Verdana. So I'm going to do Verdana 14. Ooh, excuse me. I'm just resizing. Oh, hello. Resizing. And then I'm going to drag it onto my card. Maybe I want this a little less bright. Just going to pull down the opacity just a little bit. Some of those style things you can do here, right? And then one more. So I'm just going to option drag or copy paste one more time. And this time I'm going to put the price. I'm going to say $5. Okay, now I want to make this card look more clickable. So I'm going to put like a little add button here. So I'm going to click my circle. And over here, I'm just going to hold down shift and drag. So anything clickable, we have to make sure it's big enough for our thumbs to click on. And like Nielsen Norman and other researchers have determined around 44 pixels is that sweet spot. We want our clickable elements to be at least 44 pixels. So we're going to be overachievers and go 45. I'm just going to make sure I can see my color palette in here. I'm going to make it this orangey color. So I'm going to hold my eyedropper, click that orangey color, and remove my border. Then I want a little plus sign in it because I want to tell my app visitors that you can click on this thing, you can add it to your cart. So I'm going to click my text again, click and drag over top of my circle, put a plus sign. You can make that like 20 pixels. I'm going to center it. And then I want to center it inside of my circle. So what you could do is like select the whole thing like that. So I've just clicked and dragged over both of them. And then I can click, you know, these tools up here to center it vertically and horizontally in there. And maybe I want to group it because I want those to stay together. So I'm going to right click and group. And then over here, I can rename it. I'll rename it add. I'm going to drag that onto my card somewhere in this corner. Cool. So we have this pretty neat looking card so that it can add our coffee choice to our cart. Now, something I want to show you, which is really cool, we're going to have to group things specifically in order to do this. So pay attention here. I'm going to click this espresso cappuccino, click the dark roast, and click the $5. I'm going to right click and I'm going to group these text elements because even if it's horizontal or vertical, the card like layout, I want the text to stay bunched like that, where it's stacked on top of each other. Our button is already grouped, so we're good there. So now what we can do is group the whole card. So I can click my group of my text, click my button. So I'm going to hold down shift, click my button, click my image, and click the background. You could also just click and drag the whole card and it'll select it. Now I want to group this. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to group. Over on the right, I'm just going to rename it. I'll say card. Now over on the right-hand side, with my group selected, notice where it says stack here. I'm going to click that checkbox. And right now this vertical one is highlighted, but if I click this horizontal, notice how XD is just showing it in like a portrait and a landscape view. And this is where those groupings become important because if my text wasn't grouped the way it was, it would show up next to each other. So this is pretty cool. So we'll keep it vertical like this. Any questions on that? Because I know that was a little.
Good question online. They don't see stack.
Okay.
You have to be clicked on in order to see stack.
So you have to click on the card group. So remember, we grouped. If we look inside of our card group, notice our groupings. So this group here is our This should be our text. Let's see. Let me open that. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so as long as you're clicked on the card, you check this stack over here on the right. Now you can change all of that. Now notice this number value over on the right. This is how far the elements are from each other. So you notice that pink that's highlighted now on my card. So I can change that if I wanted to, make that bigger or smaller. Maybe I'll make it around 30 since we're staying with our 10 pixel grid. Cool. So I want to create a couple more. So before I, for this over here, this one? Yes, so right next to stack, this numeric value, all I've done in here is just I've hit my up arrow and down arrow on my keyboard. And it changes the value. And notice the pink that's highlighted under the image and above the text. That's where it's changing. So it's just moving it or spacing those elements closer or further apart. Okay. All right, I want to create a couple more options. So I'm gonna copy and paste. I'm going to paste and one more time. Oops. So I have 3 cards here. Something you could do too, which is fun. Let's see if I could figure this one out on the fly. A repeat grid. So if I have just one card selected over here on the right-hand side, notice this repeat grid. Watch that little visual here. If I click that, notice these little handlebars on the bottom and the side. I can click and drag and it just repeats it as many times as I want. So I don't even have to copy and paste. So I'm just going to do that instead, even though I did it on top, that's fine. So did everyone see that? I clicked that grid up here and just dragged. Cool. Now we can change out our images and our text. So maybe the second one is an espresso. Instead of a cappuccino, it's a latte. We can keep the roast and the dollars the same. And then maybe this third one we can do, oops. So you'll kind of have to click a couple times because you're clicking through groupings, or you can go to the layers panel and find the text and click that. But you might have to double click a couple times. I'm going to change this one to spiced chai latte. How about that? We'll keep dark roast doesn't necessarily make sense with chai, so we'll just say like 2% milk. That works. Now we just have to change out our images. So I could like right click on my image and I have to click a couple times in order for it to find that image. Notice my cappuccino is selected, so that's good. Now I can right click and I can click replace image. And that one is my latte. So I'm going to click my latte and click import. And it changes my image. I'm going to do that for the next one as well. Replace image and my chai. All right, so now that we've, stop me if you have any questions, but now that we've replaced our image, replaced our text, we have it on a nice grid horizontally, we have it in a stack. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag onto my artboard. And when I drag it on here, I'm going to align it with the left of my text and my search bar. So that little pink line shows up telling me that it's aligned. And maybe I want to move it down because I think we want to put a header here, like recent orders. So I'll just leave a little bit of space for now. Now this is going off of my screen. Now something cool you can do is you can tell XD that you want your, when you're prototyping this, to be able to scroll this whole list. So if I have this, these 3 cards selected, and over here on the right-hand side, if I hover on this first one, this one actually allows me to scroll horizontally. So I'm going to click that one. And these little handlebars come up because you can actually drag them and tell it where to stop in terms of what's showing on the artboard itself. But we can actually practice with this. So not to jump ahead too much, but I'm going to click this little play button up here. When I click that play button, it pops up a little preview of what my site looks like. I'm going to use my right arrow to move because I haven't prototyped these together yet. Use my right arrow to move to my next screen. And you can just kind of scroll this. Now I notice it's getting cut off here. So maybe I can take this and move it all the way over so it's using the full width of the screen. Pretty cool. Okay, so we've learned how to horizontally scroll this section here. Let's add a little title that says your recent orders. So I'm going to click my text, click and drag up here, and then I'm going to type your recent orders. Click my select tool again. Now I'm going to left align, and I want this to be Verdana 20 pixels, and my fill to be this darker color on my color palette, which my cards are already. So I'm just going to double dip and use it from my cards, so eyedropping it from there. And I've just kind of spaced it appropriately so we can keep it on that pixel grid. So that's 30. Maybe this is 20. Let me see what this looks like bold, because I don't like it. Let's keep it regular. Okay, so underneath our recent orders, I'm going to do most popular drinks. So I'm just going to click this text that we just made, and I'm going to copy and paste it underneath my my cards here. So I'm just going to alt drag, but you can copy paste there. And I'm going to change the text to say most popular drinks. And instead of creating all new cards, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my cards up here. I'm going to copy that over on the side on the canvas. I'm going to paste it over top. So yes. Yes. So your cards, once you create the cards over on the canvas, what you can do when you're ready, they're done and ready to be on your artboard, you can just select them. So make sure you're clicking, all of them. And then I'm just dragging them onto my artboard. Just dragging them there. Hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, you can click and drag. Okay. All right, so we've copied and pasted. Oh, yeah. copy and paste our cards over here on the right-hand side. Now notice it still has that horizontal scroll thing going on with it. I don't want that. So I'm gonna go back over here and click this scroll group again, and it's gonna turn it off. So I've just unclicked that horizontal scroll group right here where my cursor is. Now I'm gonna play with those stacks because that's pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click the first card. And where's my stack? Let's see. It might not be on the right group. Oh. Yeah. So maybe. Oh, hello. So can we unrepeat grid it? Let's see. Oh no. So we might just mess with it for a second here. Copy, paste. Okay, so all I did was I clicked my repeat grid. Over on the layers panel, I found my image, my groups, and my rectangle. I clicked all of them. So I clicked this first one, held down Shift, and clicked the bottom one, and it highlights all of them. Now I know I have the right thing selected, so I can copy and paste that. And I've just dragged it down here. Doesn't look like this one is in its stack, which is okay. I'm gonna delete this top. I don't want to delete it because we've already created a couple of them. Okay, let's just create our stack here. So that's grouped together. We just want to make sure that we group everything appropriately. So let's make sure your text is grouped, your button is grouped, and then we can highlight everything and group that. And click our stack. And I'm going to click that horizontal stack option. Now, what I could do that for each of these if I wanted to, or I could just retype it. So I've clicked repeat grid. I want to show it 3 times horizontally. And then maybe quickly I can just change like the text here. Oh, the images stayed, which is interesting. So we have espresso latte, spiced chai latte, and 2% milk. Cool. Why is that showing? Okay. Well, I did rename it card, so yours might be named something different. So so I named this card. That's where that name's coming from. But what you want to look for, since that's in a repeat group, you're looking for the 4 square icon here. Can you find that? If you find that, that's your grouping that you are looking for. So if it's not stacking horizontally, it may be because your groupings are not right. So try to ungroup everything and start fresh. So for example, I could just ungroup all of this. Just make sure everything's ungrouped, except our button. Let's keep our button grouped. You'll want to make sure that your text is grouped together. So I've selected all my text. I right click and I group. And then I can select everything. So I can just click and drag like that, group that, click stack, and that should be working. Okay, so we have our horizontal, or sorry, our vertical stack here. So I don't need this one anymore. I'm going to now move it to my artboard. So I'm going to click and drag onto my artboard underneath most popular drinks. Now notice when I click out of it, I can't see all this, right? Well, you can actually change the size of your artboard altogether. So I'm going to click on my artboard, which we have not renamed. So let's do that now. I'm going to double click and change that to order. Now with my artboard selected, I can scroll down here and I can actually make my artboard longer to fit everything. Okay. So I've made my artboard longer. Now notice this little grabber here with this dotted line. This is telling me that on this phone, this is the bottom of my screen. So anything past that is not going to be viewed unless someone scrolls. That's what that's telling me. So now if I click the play button and I move my right arrow to get to my second screen, I can scroll this horizontally. So I can hold it if I wanted to, or use my mouse pad to kind of move it left and right, or I can move it up and down as well. But we're missing something kind of important, and that's a navigation. Usually on apps, they have a bottom nav, right? So I'm going to create one. So over on our canvas side, let's just make sure we're caught up. Is the chat okay? Okay. So over on the canvas, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click my rectangle, and I'm going to make a rectangle that is, change my width and height. I'm going to change it to 375 wide, which is the whole width of our page itself, and 75 pixels tall. And on my navigation itself, I want to take off the border. So I'm just going to remove that altogether. And I did forget to include the icons for it in your Google Drive. So we're just going to make a text-based one, which is okay. Not as cool, but okay. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click the text icon, click and drag. And my first navigation item is going to be order. Order. Now I'm going to make sure that that is for Dana. "20 pixels works. And I'm just going to resize my box here. And let's make the color, this is the page we're on, so I want it to be a different color. So let's make it the color of this, this orangey. So I'm gonna use my eyedropper tool and change the color to that orange. Maybe we can make it bold. As well. So I did Verdana, 20 pixels bold, and I made it that orange color. All right, I'm gonna drag that onto my rectangle, just like this. And I have two more navigation elements. So I'm going to copy and paste. And copy and paste. The middle one, I'm going to rename, let's do location. We might have to adjust the size of the text. So let's see how it goes. And then this last one, let's make it cart. Now notice I've clicked and dragged, and it's told me at this point is where it's even, like order and location is the same spacing as location and cart, which is nice. Oh, and I ruined it. There we go. And I'm just going to click and drag on all of them and try to center it within this space. And I'm not on these two pages, so I want to change the color of them. So I'm going to click location, hold down shift, click cart, and then click my eyedropper tool, and let's make it this dark color. Might be a little too dark. Even pull down the color a little bit if we wanted to, not so bright. We could even give it like this area a background color if we wanted to. So maybe I click my rectangle again, click and drag here. And then click on my select tool, take my border away. Maybe I find a nice like light gray color. Now notice this showed up on top of my text. I don't want that, I want it behind. There's a couple ways you can do that. You can take it in the layers panel and drag it underneath your text. You could also use a shortcut on your keyboard, Command left bracket. If you click that a couple times, it will move it underneath. I'm going to click and drag the whole thing and right click and group. And I'm going to rename that in my layers panel nav. At this point, our navigation looks good, so I want to drag it onto my artboard. So I'm going to click and drag it onto my artboard. And the positioning of this is important. So notice where this line is, right? This is where the bottom of our phone screen is. I'm going to drag it to the bottom of that. So it aligns there. And then I'm going to make sure it's like perfectly centered on the screen. Okay, I want this to stay fixed. Now, as I'm scrolling, I want this to always stay at the bottom. So I could click this navigation, and over on the right-hand side, you see where it says fixed position when scrolling. I'm going to check that box. Once that box is checked, let's play with it. Let's click that play button in the upper right. Let's use our right arrow to get to our next screen. And if we scroll, we should be able to see that the nav is consistent, stays there. So we have a horizontal scroll, we have this vertical scroll, and we have a fixed position element. Cool. Now, if you're seeing that you can't scroll past, like you can't scroll past this point or something, what you'll need to do is make sure that there's enough space down here for your navigation, essentially. So scroll a little past where you think it should go so that there's that extra space for your nav to live. Okay. All right, at this point, we want to prototype our things together. So if I were to click order now, I want to be able to go to this screen. And then maybe we can get back. Typically apps don't do that, but maybe if I clicked on coffee shop, it'll take me back to the splash screen. I could try that. So what we're going to do is up on the top, remember we're in the design center, we're going to click prototype. Now we're in the prototype zone. I'm going to click on my button here, my order now button. When I click, it highlights it in this blue and it has this arrow on it. I'm going to click this arrow and drag it to my next screen. Notice that the screen highlights in blue or outlines in blue. And I'm going to let go. And I can see that they're now connected. Over on the right-hand side, I can see, I can actually customize what happens. So the trigger for it to get to the next screen is a tap. I could make it a drag, I can make it a key, I can make it actually voice if I wanted to. I'm gonna keep it tap because that makes sense, right? You can also change the transition. So maybe I want it to scroll to it or auto animate it or overlay it. I'm just gonna keep it unchecked for now. And then from here, you can also say where you want it to go. You can specify an animation. So if you want it to slide left, slide right, push left, push right. So you can play with what that looks like. So I'm just going to keep it at dissolve so we can see what happens. You can also specify easing, specify duration, which is kind of cool. Now, the next thing I want to do is when I click this coffee shop, I want to go back to the splash screen. So I'm going to click the coffee shop and I'm going to click and drag over to my splash screen. Now notice the little home icon here, which is telling me that XD is using order as home, but this is actually home. So I wonder if I can change that. Oh, I see. Okay, you can highlight it and it'll tell you like this is your flow. This is where your flow is going to start, essentially. Okay, cool. So we have a flow here. Now I have everything prototyped together. I'm going to click this play button, which is going to pop up this window again. And now I'm going to click order now. Notice when I hover over it, I get the little pointer. Click order now. And it changes to my coffee shop. Click coffee shop. It goes back to my splash screen. So now those two pages are linked together, which is cool. In this little window too, notice how in our earlier examples, there were students that recorded their prototypes. This is how they did it. So you can actually click record and Adobe will record you walking through the application. So record all your movements here. Cool.
How awesome is this? You have this, looks like fully working prototype that you've coded this thing, but you haven't coded anything yet. And now that you have the visual design and you have the interactions, it's easier to code with it if you're trying to nudge all these things. So, yeah. No, so I added it to the chat while Professor Breaux was going over the grid, but what you can also do is that folder of icon, or the folder of coffee cups, you can click that folder and drag it onto the images, and it automatically populates each of the image areas with the image. So you don't even have to individually click and replace, it'll just do the whole thing. Same with the text. So if you had a bunch of text in a text file, and then you drag that file over the text box, it'll just populate all the boxes for you, which is bonkers easy. There are also some plugins to look for icons and stuff, but that is definitely intermediate. And if you all are interested, definitely set that for spring next.
Yes. Cool. All right, so let me go back to the presentation now that we have that finished here. So if you're interested, in learning more, or you want to keep exploring Adobe XD, there are resources for you. We're going to share those out. But there's tons of videos, tutorials, challenges, readings online that can allow you to push your skills further and keep going with them. Let me go into this one. So these are the resources. These are the resources that we're going to share out essentially with this presentation that's going to help you move forward with XD, practice with it, play with it. There's all these daily XD challenges or XD challenges and tools. And again, if this is something that you're interested in, you liked this workshop and you want to keep learning, we can definitely schedule an intermediate workshop to just build on what we've done today.
So we have videos and tutorials, but also these challenges are an excellent way to kind of keep up with your skills. The first link to sharpen.design just automatically delivers a design challenge. It's like, make a poster for a concert in Berlin tomorrow, or you can lock it down to products like prototypes, which is really great. There's also the Adobe Daily UX. So they just issue a daily challenge for UX, and that's via Behance. There's also XD Challenge and XD Tools. So those are a really great one to get up and running, and they give you an idea for content and you can go with it. And then I've added a bunch of reading in case you're a nerd like we are and you want to read some more. Adobe XD Ideas is a great blog by Adobe. Talks about accessibility and usability, and along with prototyping. Usability.gov, as well as the Nielsen Norman Group, which Cassidy mentioned earlier. They are essentially the fathers, they're all dudes, of user experience. So lots of additional resources for you. Again, I'll send this slide deck as well as the assets and the video out by tomorrow. A couple of questions in the class. Tyler, sitting next to me, you're working on that Shakespeare app again. Yeah, 'twas a good fortnight of training. Kaz says, Professor Carrasquilla, would you like us to turn in what we did? Yeah, I'll let you know in your individual classes if you were here for extra credit, where to turn in whatever it is you did. So don't worry if it's not perfect, just you gave it a try and you were here, and that's amazing. So I will let you know how to turn that in for your extra credit. Kelly wants to know, was it mentioned that there will be a step-by-step tutorial on this demo? If not, can we get it? We'll give you the recording so you can go through step-by-step and pause, so you can go kind of at your own pace. And then if there's interest, I know a couple of you have already said if you'd like to do an intermediate advanced level one next semester, I think that can be arranged. Excellent. We're wrapping up a little early, so if you have some questions, we can answer those if you like. We're also happy to let you go early and give you a half an hour of your lives back, which I know is so necessary, especially towards the end of the semester, for sure. Thank you. Thanks, Professor Breaux, and thanks to Barnett for sticking around and helping us out today. And thanks all of you for joining us today. Thank you.